Okay, now that we have all of our semantic HTML set up, let's go ahead and figure out some fonts. I'm going to go over here to Google Fonts, and I went ahead and took the liberty of picking some, so you don't have to watch me search through them. And I just want to remind you of a few features that are really useful in case you've forgotten. So under all categories, you can filter. If you know you only want serif or sans serif or whatever, you can filter for different things. Looking through all of them can be a little bit challenging sometimes because there are a lot. However, I don't want you to just settle, like spend the time looking at them. The other thing too is that once you find the ones you want, you click on this add to collection button, and once they're added to your collection, they'll show up down here, and then you can say review. And what's kind of nice is it'll show you a specimen, and you can change the different styles that are available. And if only one style is available, it's going to be grayed out. Styles tab, it will show you all the different styles. Under test drive, this is a nice feature because it'll kind of like pull a layout together so you can see kind of how they'd look together, which is pretty nice. Character set will show you which glyphs are available for that particular font. Under compare, it'll overlap them so you can see how really different the fonts are. Okay, so like for instance, you can see the difference in the R, capital R, and the way that the W's are, and so on. The other thing I don't want you to forget that we have as an option is if you look at this little download link over here, if you click to download that, you can actually use that, install it in your computer and use it like in Photoshop and in Illustrator and those kinds of things if you needed to make a graphic out of it, or also if you ever needed to do like a print campaign along with your web campaign. We're not doing that for this assignment, but I just want to point that out to you. So you would go to use finally, and based on the ones that you would want. Okay, so we could either, I'll add light just in case I decide that I want light. And you see it shows you your page load time, so we're still in the green, that's good. So I can click on this and copy it, and that's what's going to go in my HTML. So let's jump over to the HTML, and up at the top, right before I call my style sheet, that's where I want to paste it. I'm going to save that. Okay, so let's jump back over there, and now you'll see what we also need for our CSS. So we're going to take these different font families, so I'll copy this one, and just for right now, I'm just going to paste them directly into my CSS, and then I'll do something different with them in just a moment. Okay, and they're not properly formatted in a rule yet, but I just want to get them in the same place. Okay, so here we go. We've got these two things that don't make any sense right now. So I'm going to create, in my CSS, I'm going to make a body rule right off the bat. And first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to tell it to have a margin of 0, because remember, it automatically will want to put a margin so that everything is spaced a little bit away from the viewport edge. So let's just say margin 0. And then the next thing that we'll do is I'm going to tell the font family for the entire page to be in Muley. And I like this particular font for the entire page because it's going to be the majority of the body copy. So I'll do that. And then I know for a fact that this is probably what I'm going to want to be for my heading level. So let's just do this. We'll say H1, and then I'll put my font family, just so that I don't have anything improperly formatted. I'll put my font family in for my heading inside my H1. So I'm going to save that, and then the next thing that we can do, if you want, you could also go ahead and make this for, let's say, font family is also for your H2, so we can make a grouped rule where it's H1 comma H2. We'll save that, and then if you want to go back to your HTML, make sure it's saved, and then you can do a preview of it. And then you see that it's got our fonts updated, which is great. Okay, and that looks a little bit more interesting than the way that it did before. Okay, so that's just the beginning of our styling. Now the next thing that we need to do is figure out how we can get it to kind of look like this, right? How we can get it from here to here. So the first thing that I want to do is let's not worry about all the specific styling of the text and stuff right now. Let's just figure out how we're going to do the images. And maybe one of the best ways to do that is to kind of go back over here to our inventory. I'm going to close that. And we can look at our inventory, and basically what we have right now is we have this stuff, okay? that's already in the page. And the other things that are missing, let's say, are the body. So if you remember, we said that we want the body image to be that sky. We can go back and go ahead and in our style sheet, let's go ahead and tell that the body background image to be, let's say background. Let's say that we're going to make it be the URL. And we know that it's in, if you look over here, it's in the images folder, and we called it road body BG sky. So we'll say it's in images, and it's called road dash body dash BG dash sky. And then it's .png. Okay, and then what we need to do after that is add another space for shorthand, and we need to tell it that it is going to be no repeat. That's important. Okay, so no repeat. And then after that, we need to tell it to be fixed so it doesn't scroll with the page. That's also very important. And then next we want to be able to tell it, is it going to be oriented to the left or to the right or to the center or to the top? We're going to say that it's going to, let's try, let's do center and center so that it's centered both vertically and horizontally. So let's save that and let's take a peek real quick. And we need to go back to your HTML to do the preview. Okay, and you can see that it's actually, it's sort of working, right? And remember that this down here is, down at the bottom is transparent. So if that's really throwing you off, then you could put the real image back, the full image there, if that's really confusing to you. Now, the other thing that we need to do is we need to tell it to have a background of cover. So our background size of cover, because we want to make sure that it always will cover. But the thing is, because it's based on the body, well, let's just go ahead and do that. Let's just say background, and we're going to say background, let me just type the thing out. Background dash size. There we go. I'm going to say cover. All right, let's see that. And let's go over here and hit refresh and see how that changes it. And it does change it a lot. All right, because it's leaving that extra space down here. It means it's always going to cover it. This is perfect, okay? It's exactly what we want. One thing that I will say that is a little bit confusing, however, about using this particular graphic is that we can't really tell where the road is. And because this picture is so important in terms of like it always having the road at the bottom, then maybe we don't want the background size, or excuse me, maybe we don't want the orientation to always be perfectly centered. Maybe we want it to be centered, left and right, but we want it to be not centered top and bottom. And one way that it would be easier for you to tell is if we actually were dropping that other image in there. And so if you wanted to kind of take a really quick peek, we have that full image. It's just called road.jpg. So I'm going to actually, I'll move that into images. All right, and then if we look in images, it's there. If we want to just test that really fast, we can go here, and instead of saying road body blah 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 blah, I'm just going to cut this end off, and I'll just say road.jpg, and let's just see what that looks like just with it completely centered. All right, so that looks okay, and that's kind of okay, but look what happens like whenever we start to collapse it, the road starts to get cut off down here, and that might be not what we want. Maybe we want it so that the road is always fully visible from the bottom up. So let's see how that would affect it. If I come back over here and I say center left and right, and then we say start it from the bottom. And let's just save that, and we'll go back here and we'll refresh the same page, and you see it's dramatically different. And also you'll notice that the bottom always stays anchored to the bottom. So that's a lot more really of what we want as we scale this thing around, is we want the bottom, the image to be anchored to the bottom. And so now if we wanted to go back there and put the image in that we really wanted to use, so I can paste that back in there. It's that road body BG sky. hit refresh, and it doesn't look like much, but it's going to work. And if you really don't like using that because you can't see what's going on right now, then you're welcome to use the full image if you're following along and doing something very similar or the same with my practice files. Okay, so now we've got that there. And the issue that we have now is that we need those other images to kind of stack, right? Now, if you wanted to sort of keep consistent, we could also jump back over here and look at our inventory. And the thing that we decided, or that I'm deciding now, that's missing, all right, if you think about the images, is that if you want to look at body, so if we were to do this, we could say sort of like the body tag has now, kind of has now taken care of the, I guess, background sky. All right, these are just my little notes. You don't have to do this, right? So that's taken care of in terms of our image. And then if you want to make it kind of big, that's our background sky image, okay? All right, and then the next thing that I might do is say, all right, well, we need something for the actual other layered images. Well, I'm not going to use anything here because these are the things that have to kind of go in between, right? So this is where you could use basically something that's for presentation purposes only, which is a div. Here you could say div, and then this one could be like ID is like middle or something if you wanted, or you could call it something like rear. We could call it rear hills. Let's say real like that or something. Okay, that's one, and then that could basically have the rear hills. Let's say background rear hills image, right? Okay, so then the other one that we could do, I'm just going to copy this and paste it and change the relevant information, is that this would be something like, let's call it top road or something like that. I think I was calling it like rear hills mask or top mask or whatever in my sketch, but I'll say rear hills, and then this one is like top road. And if I really wanted to, I could say something like mid rear hills and then top road, because I know that that's going to go on the very top in terms of Z index. And so we'll say top road image, right? Okay, so that helps me in terms of my inventory. So this one's already taken care of, right? That's already checked off. So I can make that, some other color on my document, I guess. So that one's checked off. I just need to create these other two. So I'm actually gonna just copy this. And because I'm going to be using any kind of positioning I want, including fixed or absolute. And because div is not semantic, I'm going to go ahead and just paste that at the very beginning. And I'm going to end my div tag like that because nothing has to really go in it. And I'm going to put a little note here, and that might help us. And then I can just highlight this and then add a comment around it. Okay. And so that helps me understand what this particular thing is, what the purpose of it is. Okay. And then I'll just copy this comment and I'll have something else down here. This is hold the top image of road. All right, and then we can say H1 and stanzas go behind. Right? That's the idea, and so I'll decide to just copy this so that I'm consistent with my notes. All right, so I can paste that in there and then just end that div properly. And so I can save that. And I've got these two things that aren't going to look like anything right now because there's no content, there's no styling, nothing, nada, right? So first of all, let's go ahead and style the rear hills one.